a new dawn of awakening has begun, and there are people who are being called into this stream of consciousness, this path of evolution. And it has to do with a reclaiming of the feminine. But now a lot of people think that that has to do with women. Now, yes, it does, but on a more universal level, what this has to do with is reclaiming the body, reclaiming the connection to our vessel. And so by default, that is going to also include the integration of all of the trauma that our bodies carry. We have all of the memories of our ancestors. The entire collective history of humanity is stored in the cells of our body. And we also have our own individual traumatic experiences and woundings that are also stored in this library, in this somatic library. And so there is a relationship between spirituality and trauma, and spirituality and the body and the feminine, that we are being initiated into, because it's wonderful to be able to have a connection to the divine, to be able to sit in nature like this and touch these spiritual frequencies. But what's really going to move us forward as a species is being able to integrate that into our human experience. You know, I was sitting here super connected doing this video, and a neighbor of mine pulled up in a car, and my entire field immediately closed because there was a fear of judgment. There was a fear of being seen, of connecting. And so these little things, we all have these things, all of us. And these little traumas are the nooks and crannies that the light is now trying to enter at this time. Because all of the spiritual practice in the world does nothing for your human in relationship with others. Like, if we still have all of this fragmentation and division inside of us from our core wounding that is not addressed, we don't actually have the structural integrity to really hold the light, to really anchor in the divine consciousness, like in relationship, in everyday life as a human being. And so this is what we're being called into. It is a spiritualization of the human life. It is a integration of the emotional body, because spiritual practice is great, but there's almost comes a point where it's just like wiping the surface clean, and it doesn't actually create a lasting, sustainable effect in the human relational sphere. And that's because we still have all of the dense, lower chakra, primal, animal, human type of stuff that's there. As a collective, if we don't know how to be in relationship with one another, if we don't know very basic stuff of how to work through our triggers, how the nervous system affects our perception, and how our defense mechanisms from our wounds actually cause certain behavioral dynamics to continue to occur, that without this foundational integrative work, those spiritual frequencies can't fully land. They cannot fully land in the body, in the being. And it's like, you can do all the clearing in the world, you could do all the Reiki, you could do all the meditation, you could do all the breath work even. But again, you're just like you're just doing like a surface cleaning, but the actual crack in the core isn't being addressed. And that's where like integrative trauma informed embodiment work comes in, so we could actually seal up, you know, that split and bring wholeness to that part, because we have so many different beings, so many different versions of ourselves, so many different regressed, stunted, developmentally stunted parts within our psyche and within our body that get activated in relationship, that get activated by emotional situations, right? And if that core wound isn't addressed, what happens is when there is a core wound, there's an internalization. There's an internalization of a certain energy, of a certain story, of a certain meaning, right? And until that charge is brought to the surface, that emotion is brought to the surface and actually digested, just like you would digest your food, it lives there and it stays there. And the tools that we use in spirituality aren't actually designed to address that level of our being. So there are spiritual influences, right? There are negative entities that exist. There are also, you know, supportive entities that exist, of course, all of these things. And the human being is like a channel which all of these influences actually move through. We're actually constantly being bombarded by different stimulus from our environment and also from the spiritual worlds. And so there is so much truth in that, you know, we can have certain like parasitic attachments and entity attachments and things like this. But if we aren't, like, how those things even get into us is through trauma. Trauma creates like a split where something can enter into and live inside of you, so to speak. Now, how we actually address this is by first addressing the trauma, because if you don't address that split, you could do all the clearing you want, but you're not actually sealing up the energetic leak. And so these are just two pieces here, you know, these two pieces that I'm touching on in this video, this relational piece, and then this also like energetic attachment type of piece. We can start to see how a spirituality that is separated from humanity is no spirituality at all. It is ungrounded, it is dissociative, and it's not going to actually serve the collective at this time, because what we're moving through is an actual clearing and integration of the collective shadow, which lives in the way we interface with that is through the body. That's the way we interface with life force. We're in bodies for a reason, right? And so when we have all of these emotions that are living inside of us that aren't expressed and that aren't processed, we actually get cut off from life force, and we get cut off, we start to move into separation. And so a third piece here is like, to really be able to sustain an experience of oneness, we have to include the body. We have to include our trauma. We have to include being able to work with our emotions, because without that, there's no way you could sustain that state if you're in the world. You know, if you're in the world relating with people, if you're like living in a cave somewhere, it's maybe a different story. But this is why there's a new spirituality like being birthed at this very moment. And there are leaders and visionaries and people like you watching this, like me, who are being called to really like bring forward this thread, to bring forward this, you know, to weave this part of the tapestry, and to really go there, to really do the deep dive. And for me, it's just like, you know, this is the foundation. This is really the foundation where we can start to, you know, through the body and through really meeting your human and meeting your emotions first, meeting yourself where you're at, that you actually do feel closed, that you actually do feel hurt, that you do feel rejected, that you do feel unworthy, and not trying to like Joe Dispenza or law of attract your way through that. Those tools aren't supportive to really heal. They're not. And once we can meet ourselves there, then we can really like go into these like higher chakra, higher dimensional types of practices in a really beautiful way, and they can support us in doing this really deep and grueling but honorable work of integrating the shadow, the collective human shadow. That's the thing that is plaguing our species. It's the shadow frequency, and it's also here to help us evolve. It's here to evil is here so that good can evolve more. And the way we do that is through the alchemy of the body. The alchemist, it's not someone who like sits and connects with these higher beings all day and just meditates. It's not what alchemy is. Turning lead into gold is going through the negretto, is going through the blackness, through the darkness, through the decomposition. And how things decompose is through emotional processing in the body. That's what it actually feels like. You can feel it, and that's the prerequisite to transmutation, to transformation in a holistic way, from the ground up, and the top down at the same time, from the inside out, from the core outwards. So I'm just being called to share this transmission because I'm having this impulse to really come back on this YouTube channel and start to put out a lot more. I've been working with clients from all over the world for years now, but my main platform has been through Instagram. I've been helping people recover through trauma, learn how to use their nervous system to process emotions, and how to use spiritual practice in a supportive way, in a healthy way, in the way that I'm describing here. So if this resonates with you, if this inspires with you, I encourage you to reach out to me, to ask about my coaching. I'll put links in the description. I have an embodiment course that's a really great price. It's super affordable. There's amazing practices in it, because this stuff, it's hard to find. Like, you can't just search a YouTube video and like find like the practices that I'm talking about here. I've looked, they're not there. So I have a course, I'll link it in the description. You could check that out if you want like your own self-paced thing. But if you want to go into a deep dive, if you want support, if you want someone in your corner with you, I'll put another link to apply for my one-to-one coaching. I work with people in 3 and 6 month containers, and that's just like super deep, amazing, beautiful work. And for those of you who aren't in that space, pay attention to the channel, subscribe, hit the like button, share it with a friend. I'm going to be putting out a lot more free content, a lot more videos. I'll be sharing some practices, some things that will help you on your journey, without a doubt. But I would love to hear how this landed for you, what's coming up for you listening to this, if you're feeling this shift in the collective, in yourself happen as well. And I am just honored to be here. Honored to be doing this work. And if you're watching this for a reason. So I love you so much. Thank you for being here with me, and I'll catch you in the next video. So much love.